They were flown here with the prospect of a better life. Instead, though, the lives of half a dozen puppies from Mexico are in limbo tonight.
Tony Ty joins us now from the vet clinic where the dogs are being kept tonight. And Tony, it all just comes down to some paperwork.
Very true. Very familiar situation. A Calgary couple went down to Mexico with some vets from Vancouver to do a vacation, but also to help in a spay and neuter clinic. And while they were there, saw 6 puppies that they thought, we've got to rescue these puppies and bring them back home. The problem is the paperwork that they filled out was registered as if they were a commercial operation or a business, and they were bringing the puppies back to possibly sell them. Now, of course, they weren't. They were going to just adopt the puppies and take care of them. They have some dogs of their own. The problem is, once they got them back here, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which regulates the adoption and sale of puppies, deemed the puppies as being brought back to be resold like a puppy mill. And so the puppies are stuck in this vet clinic behind me in quarantine. The couple can't take them back. They can't bring them home with them. And the Canadian government has actually said they have to send them back to Mexico. It's a pretty desperate situation, and it really is. All revolves around simple paperwork.
And with these guys, there's nothing that we couldn't treat, nothing that's contagious, nothing that is, from what we can tell so far, at risk to other dogs in the community or to people in the community.
My husband and I did look on the Canada Food Inspection Agency website. It was convoluted, but we did manage to, so we thought, get the proper paperwork in place to bring the dogs back to Canada. So I thought I had everything in place properly.
Now, we talked to the couple this afternoon, talked to the vets here at the McKnight 24-hour clinic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the dogs. They're doing very well. It's just simply a matter of paperwork. We've made several calls to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to ask, why is it that these dogs have to be sent back if they're not going to be resold? We haven't had any response yet. We have our global station in Vancouver working on the story as well, and we'll have full update tonight on this whole situation and what went wrong.
Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome.
Despite the best intentions of a group of animal lovers, some puppies that were about to be adopted are now on death row in Calgary. The reasons are complicated, but it all comes down to this. The puppies were brought in from Mexico for adoption in Canada. Something that's happened many times before without issue. But now, the rules are confusing and apparently open to interpretation.
6 young refugees quarantined in Calgary. Locked up thanks to Canadian federal rules, these Mexican rescue dogs may not get a chance to enjoy the new life they came here to live.
Couldn't come home without. They were just adorable, and they broke my heart. The one puppy was emaciated, and I just knew that I could give them a better life here.
How the community manages the dog numbers is that they do these semi-annual strychnine campaigns.
A week ago, like these dogs, the Calgary puppies were strays, fighting for food on the streets of a village north of Puerto Vallarta, likely to be culled. But thanks to paperwork, the dogs are on death row, detained by Canadian Border Services following new Canadian Food Inspection Agency rules. Rescue dogs count as commercial property, meaning new requirements that were a complete surprise to the rescuer.
The puppies now all of a sudden required an import permit. They required a microchip or a tattoo. And they had to come from an approved kennel. These dogs came from Mexico, and it wasn't an approved kennel.
So this one was hit by a car 3 days ago.
Burnaby vet Carolyn Buxton volunteers internationally, spaying and neutering, treating any ailment, and frequently bringing dogs back to Canada for adoption. In fact, these 5 arrived this week from the same village without any problem.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they would restrict access to a small number of puppies like that who clearly are not destined for, they're not from a breeder, they're rescue puppies.
The puppies were initially ordered out of Canada within 72 hours, now given a 30-day reprieve. But they can't stay beyond that. They'll have to be put down if they're here, and they can't go home.
I don't want to subject the puppies to a month in quarantine, another long, arduous journey back to Mexico, only to meet a death sentence.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has been unable to explain to us exactly why the dogs were turned away. Jeff Hastings, Global News.